Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany. My name is Reverend Sam Trumbore and I serve as minister of this congregation. Before we begin, this is our little Zoom intro for our people online. Make sure that your microphone is muted. You can also turn your camera off if your image is potentially distracting. Please also be mindful of your speech while on Zoom, as microphones do have a way of accidentally getting unmuted. This will minimize any disruption of our service. And you'll also notice that we have closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to turn that off or on, find the CC option on your Zoom toolbar and select the up arrow to access it. Thanks so much for your cooperation. The theme for the month is holding history. Let us begin this morning honoring our truth-telling ancestors who came before us with these words by Karen Johnson. Ancestors who spoke with bravest fire, lend us your senses, that we may know another world is on her way, breathed into life with our participation in her creation. Forebears who led the way where there was at first no way, lend us your persistence, your temerity, your assurance that the moral arc of the universe is indeed bending toward justice. Ones who went before us, sacrificing for a future not your own, help us to give of ourselves, that the common stones in our hands today might be cathedrals of compassion today, halls of restorative justice tomorrow, sheltering walls of beloved community the day after. It is Sunday morning, the day we gather. Let us be thankful and full of praise to be in the company of those who came before, yet are ever in our midst. Honoring those who have come before us and appreciating the legacy they have left for us, let us join together in this. Our prelude this morning is Sunshine on My Shoulders. John Denver, Michael Taylor, and Dick Niss. Our musician is Randy Rosette. As Peggy lights our chalice, and we find the right camera, and we find the words, which I know we will find. I have confidence. Nope, not that one. You know, we didn't rehearse this on Saturday. I was thinking maybe we need to rehearse more often. All right, very good. And do we have some words that we'll see soon? There we go, excellent. As Peggy lights the chalice, let us share these words together. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning, we gather to excite the human spirit, to inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. And we have a song Turn Back, which is led by Randy.
Hi, everybody. It's Elizabeth Valdez, the Acting Director of Religious Education here at Albany UU. And our wisdom story this week is Stolen Words, written by Melanie Florence, illustrated by Gabrielle Grimard. She came home from school today, skipping and dancing, humming a song under her breath, clutching a dream catcher she had made from odds and ends, bits of string, plastic beads, and brightly colored feathers. Her glossy braids danced against her shoulders, swaying with her, black as a raven's wing. "Grandpa," she asked, clutching his hand, spinning under his arm before dropping it again. "How do you say grandfather in Cree?" He stopped breathing for a moment. A lifetime to a 7-year-old. He looked down at her sadly. "I don't remember," he answered. "I lost my words a long time ago." A frown clouded her face. "How do you lose words, Grandpa?" she asked. "They took them away," he answered. She thought for a moment. "Where did they take them?" she asked. "Where they took all of us," he said. "Away from home, away from laughter and soft words, away from our mothers who cried for us." She reached for his gnarled hand. "Who took you away, Grandpa?" she asked quietly. "Men and women dressed in black, talking to us with words we did not know," he answered. They reached home, sat on the stairs together. "Where did they take you, Grandpa?" she asked. "Away to a school that was cold and lonely, where angry white faces raised their voices in their hands when we used our words," he answered. "They took our words and locked them away, punished us until we forgot them, until we sounded like them." Harsh, sharp words, so different from the sound of our beautiful ones. She touched his weathered face, tried to wipe the sadness away with her soft hands. She looked down at her lap and handed him the dream catcher she had made for her room. "You take this, Grandpa," she said. "Maybe it will help you find your words again." He smiled at her, his granddaughter, and touched her innocent face, a face that had never known hard words or raised hands. He smiled and kissed her head. The next day she skipped out of school again, smiling widely at her grandfather. She stopped in front of him and took a deep breath. "Tansi, Nemo-san," she said. His eyes widened. She smiled brighter than the sun. "I found your words, Grandpa," she said. She pulled a tattered, well-worn paperback out of her book bag. "Introduction to Cree," it said. "My teacher helped me find this for you at the library." He reached for it, his hands shaking, opened it, feeling the soft, much-loved pages under his fingers. "Nursing," he whispered. "Granddaughter." The word felt familiar in his mouth. It felt like his home, his mother. He turned the pages of the book. He turned another, word after word. Kisquayu, language, his words, pages and pages of them. He looked at his granddaughter. "Is Noxing?" "Thank you." "Donkey," he said. "Will you read to me?" she asked, taking his hand in hers and leading him home. "Will you teach me your words?" His heart danced as he nodded, holding the book against his chest. And that is the end of our story.
Thank you to our children for being part of our service this morning. And they can go to their classes, and we can, at the same time as they're leaving, we can welcome some folks on Facebook. It's good to have you joining us as well. My name is Sam Trumbore, and welcome you to our service. I have a reading for you this morning. A truth pledge for you this morning as a guide for seeking and speaking the truth. I bring you this truth pledge as our reading. It was developed by Dr. Gleb Tispersky, a behavioral economist and cognitive neuroscientist and a best-selling author. Was first published in 2016. It inspires his most recent book, Pro-Truth, a pragmatic plan to put truth back into politics. The Pro-Truth Pledge is partly a reaction and a would-be answer to the recent political trends in the United States and in the United Kingdom. For example, to alternative facts, growth of fake news, and post-truth politics, all of which are seen as acute problems. You might be interested to know that this pledge has been scientifically tested and shown to be effective at increasing truthful sharing on Facebook, and a statistically significant increase in alignment with the truth pledge taker's behavior with the pledge. And you can learn more at protruthpledge.org. So it begins, I pledge my earnest efforts to, and if I can have the first slide, share truth, verify, fact-check information to confirm it is true before accepting and sharing it. Balance. Share the whole truth, even if some aspects of it do not support my opinion. Cite. Share my sources so that others may verify my information. Clarify. Distinguish between my opinion and the facts. Honor truth. Acknowledge when others share true information, even when we disagree otherwise. Reevaluate if my information is challenged. Retract it if I cannot verify it. Defend others when they come under attack for sharing true information, even when we disagree otherwise. Align my opinions and my actions with true information. Encourage truth. Fix. Ask people to retract information that reliable sources have disproved, even if they are my allies. Educate. Compassionately inform those around me to stop using unreliable sources, even if these sources support my opinion. Defer. Recognize the opinions of experts as more likely to be accurate when the facts are disputed. Celebrate. Celebrate those who retract inaccurate, incorrect statements and update their beliefs toward the truth. I encourage you to take the Pro-Truth Pledge. And let us turn inward for a different approach to seeking truth. one for seeking inner truth. What is true in this moment isn't far away. It isn't on some higher ethereal plane that takes years of navel gazing to discover. It is right here, right now. What you are experiencing right now is true. Not necessarily your thinking about what you are experiencing right now, but the flow of this moment into the next moment seamlessly and without interruption. If you can just now know what is arising and passing away, you will be deeply in touch with what is true right now. There isn't any right or wrong or better or worse to right now. It is what it is. All you add is the knowing of it, moment to moment. Noticing what changes, noticing what doesn't change, if you can. The only effort required is paying close attention to what is right now. Let's give it a try during the silent meditation, if you're willing and able. Grant Cornwell, president of Rollins College in 2018, wrote, "In the anti-intellectualism of our current political culture, I see a disregard for the value of truth and its pursuit with integrity. Maybe worse, I see a dismissive attitude toward the knowing of facts. What is true has been displaced by what reinforces one's ideology in politics. And ideology trumps facts. I see this as a threat to democracy." I didn't realize how much I take for granted the value of seeking the truth until our previous national president was elected. What shocked me was the Republican willingness to select a candidate that had such disregard for truth-telling, a total lack of interest in what was true, and a lack of even embarrassment for telling lie after lie after lie. I didn't understand at first why Republicans would tolerate a liar-in-chief as president, until I recognized the reason. This self-promoting narcissist could stay on message and tell his supporters exactly what they wanted to hear. His supporters weren't interested in the truth either. They were interested in picking a winner. The only thing that was important was gaining power and using it to serve their interests. Truth wasn't close in importance to his supporters than power. And if this former president understood that being truthful didn't matter at all, what he did understand was only winning mattered. I'd agree with Dr. Cornell that this former president's almost total disregard for the truth has threatened and even deeply damaged the foundations of democracy. He thought he could just give orders as if he was the national CEO and everyone would just do his bidding. Separation of powers were an inconvenience, the courts an obstacle for his agenda. He wasn't interested in being persuasive. He preferred intimidation. He expected his Republican minions to fall into line and follow his agenda. He did everything he could to try to dismantle the barriers that prevented him from dictating law and policy from the White House. But that isn't how our system of government with its many checks and balances is set up. And thankfully, it did hold together. The courts reined in his executive branch overreach. Congress wouldn't cooperate with his directives, and truth still mattered. Truth still mattered because of the anti-authoritarian nature of our system of government. America inherits the Protestant Christian allergy to authority that goes back to the Reformation. The papal abuse of power and wealth extraction from the poor and the rich precipitated Martin Luther to kickstart the rebellion by nailing his 95 Theses to the Wittenberg church door, or so legend has it. The printing press allowed the Theses to be widely circulated to give his protest traction. These reformers who joined the Lutheran protest believed they didn't need the Catholic Church to gain access to salvation. The truth of Jesus' saving message was in the written word of the scriptures. They alone contained the truth that would set us free and assure salvation. The lineage of the church with its ornate buildings, priests, and sacraments, that could be scrapped. All that was needed was the book. All that was needed was to understand the truth of the message. Choose truth over institution. Reading scripture and accessing truth directly was very appealing. Wouldn't have made any sense without the invention of the printing press, so Bibles could be widely distributed. They had to be translated into a vernacular that could be read, and people needed to learn to read and interpret the meaning of the text to access that truth. In the age of Google searches, I wonder if many of us can imagine just how exciting it was to learn to read and have access to what was formerly secret text that was only available to the priests. To read it, then to go to the corner pub or coffee house, have a few steins of beer and cups of coffee and argue about what it all meant. The Lord was right there, speaking out of the page for all to see. Professors of literature and history were the party poopers who poured cold water on this amateur scholarship. There were problems with translation as the Bible was written in the ancient languages of Hebrew and Greek. Nuances of meaning mattered. That got lost in translation. Then came the literary criticism that picked apart the inconsistencies in the text, suggesting the document didn't have just one author, God dictating it from on high. Various scribes had been editing the text to interpret it. They did so, for good reason, to make the message more consistent with the experiences and expectations of their contemporary believers in their political and social setting, so that they could understand. But in the process of their edits, the meanings were changed. Changed the truth. Contemporary historians exposed the inaccuracies of the stories based on archaeology from the ancient lands. Rather than a consistent, historically accurate document, it began to fall apart into competing, sometimes contradictory narratives and agendas. And then science came along and undercut the claims of the document itself. No, the earth wasn't just 6,000 years old. No, the origins of species didn't happen as it was described in Genesis. Where were the dinosaurs? No, there wasn't a physical Garden of Eden from which humanity was ejected. No, the dead do not come back to life. No, we don't have physical evidence for angels and devils. Revelation isn't a reliable guide to truth. Finally, the claim of objective truth is suspect. So says contemporary literary theorists and philosophers. Our subjective frame of reference distorts our perceptions of what is true. Our heritage, culture, abilities and disabilities, our belief system, our language, all shape how we understand what is real and what is true. The Constitution of the United States, document that we revere, has different meanings for white Southerners and Black Southerners. It was a document created to protect the interests of the white slave and land owners of Northern European extraction, and a lot of the language is still there. It created institutions designed to protect their interests. In the struggle for truth, Unitarian Universalists have sided with the professors and the scientists. We have always been adjacent to the schools of higher education, putting our faith in the advance of knowledge. Rather than take sides in wars of epistemology, in ways of knowing, we turn it over to the sanctity of the individual mind. It isn't my job to tell you what is true. I can tell you what I think is true, but it isn't binding on you. You're just as likely to come right back at me with your perception of truth and maybe change my mind. We want each person to seek truth and meaning and then come here to compare notes in our journey through life. The danger, though, with this individualistic approach is self-delusion. I come upon what seems like truth, but upon closer inspection, those truth claims fall apart. Hopefully before I sign any big checks to some cult leader. The conspiracy-obsessed internet truth seekers often deceive themselves by doing research that excludes trusted and reliable sources that question their theories. We are all vulnerable to being seduced by what we want to believe is true, but might be just too consistent or coherent to be true. The freedom of our searching process makes us vulnerable to exploitation. But so does uncritically accepting truth claims from an established religious tradition. Our principle puts it this way: a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This is a lot to take on as an individual with limited knowledge and capability. How am I to assess these theological questions like, did Jesus exist? If he did, was he actually the Son of God? If he was the Son of God, was he also co-eternal with God? Traditional Unitarian theology rests on the belief that if Jesus existed, he must have been a creature, not a creator. Did he come back from the dead, or did he just not die in the first place? Or how about some more mundane questions about which I don't have any personal experience? Was that moon landing really faked? What about the 9/11 conspiracy theories? How about that accelerating expansion of the universe? Doesn't seem like that when I look up at the sky at night. Could be light pollution. And what about that crazy idea of dark energy and matter? I just don't see it. To address these vulnerabilities in seeking the truth, Unitarian Universalism has some strategies. First, we've identified sources we can go to in our search for truth. We appreciate our first source, the direct experience of mystery and wonder, our subjective experience. But we don't stop there. We may go to Christian and Jewish scriptures. We may also investigate world and earth-centered religious traditions and humanist teachings, philosophy. We can check the results of science. We're open to many sources of wisdom to guide and shape our search for truth and meaning. We have a responsibility to be fact-based as much as possible, to test our thinking, to make sure it aligns with reality. I like to describe Unitarian Universalism as a reality-based religion. Critical tools in that process are the use of logic and reason. The reliability and limitations of sources are also important. I'm not going to use Christian theology to help me understand dark matter and energy, though one might have interesting metaphors for the other. As a guide for that process, I was pleased to find that truth pledge, and I think it's an excellent reference point for honest and sincere truth seeking. It's a way to seek truth rather than seek to be right or prove somebody else wrong. I encourage its use as a guide for truth seeking, even as a spiritual discipline for our growth and development. And in our search process as Unitarian Universalists, there are limits to what we are going to consider as we search for truth. We need to respect that there are some guide rails in the process. We are not going to seek truth and meaning in the toxic, socially destructive areas like racist, heterosexist, homophobic, ableist thinking. If we do want to be open-minded and listen to those who have those opinions, we will also want to hear at the same time those who provide counter-arguments, so that latent tendencies implanted by social conditioning white folks are striving to unlearn don't get activated. As for me, I'm not wasting my time on QAnon theories that the Democrats are scheming to harvest the blood of children, or examining the bogus evidence showing that the COVID-19 vaccines have microchips in them. We will want to go to reliable sources in our search, ones we can trust. We may not be able to run all the calculations to convince ourselves the universe expansion is accelerating. We can, though, have a forum with Heidi Newberg, who was one of the scientists who helped develop that theory. Most of us can't analyze 3,000-year-old artifacts from Palestine or read ancient Hebrew or Greek texts. We can, though, read generally accepted books that can help us understand their significance. There is a reliable collective pool of understanding and wisdom we can draw on to guide us. Once we come up with a sense of what is true, I'm going to want to find others who share my ideas and then to hear their response. I'd like those to be thoughtful folks who know me and I know them. I do so in the hope that they will have a holistic response to my ideas that I wouldn't get on some anonymous internet chat room or asking the question maybe at a public lecture. I'd like to be in the shared journey of growth and development over months and years with others who know where I've been and the direction I hope to go. We already know we are not going to all agree. And that isn't the point of the shared journey. It is an appreciation that we are moving collectively toward truth, and the shared journey is mutually supportive. We may not find the same provisional truth, but we can inspire each other through our efforts. This is the great benefit of the growth and development we can have in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. We are not on this journey alone. Seeking and speaking the truth matters. Let us pledge ourselves to this effort. So be it.
Good morning. I'm Peggy Sherman, and I'm the Service Associate today. An important way we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on this next slide. If you're joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number shown on the screen. The examples on the screen show how to label your text to indicate the amount and purpose or intent of your gift. And now we must say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time, or visit us in person at 405 Washington Avenue, Albany. And you can find more information at albanyuu.org. Our offertory music is Give Us Hope by Jim Papoulis, arranged by Francisco Nunez, and presented by our own Albany UU Virtual Choir.
Listen to the sound of my voice.
Thank you, choir, for that wonderful piece. We enjoy welcoming guests and visitors to our service. If you'd like to tell us who you are and where you're from, those here in Community Hall should stand or raise your hand, and Kathy will bring you a microphone so everyone can hear you. Those joining us on Zoom can click on the raise hand symbol, which you'll find either in the participant window or in the reactions button on your Zoom toolbar. Our technician will invite you to unmute and introduce yourself. You may also, or instead, click on the visitor link you'll find in the chat window.
It's hard to believe that I've been, for 47 years, this congregation and the Unitarian Universalist principles have been and continue to be my source of inspiration and guidance on how to live my life. How is that possible? Here are 6 examples. Number 1, the people I have met here have been and continue to be my role models and mentors. Number 2, the religious education program supported our work as parents and helped us raise 2 terrific people who are now 46 and 49. Wellspring helped me develop a daily spiritual practice that I've been doing for 10 years. The support of this community helped me maintain my sanity during the Trump years and the COVID pandemic. I'd not be working at Sheridan Prep if it wasn't for the backing of Albany UU. My understanding of racism was challenged here, giving me the courage to participate in weekly vigils. Albany UU has offered me and continues to offer me a vast array of opportunities to learn, serve, and be inspired. Currently, I'm chair of the Green Sanctuary Committee. We are trying to do what we can to address climate change. We encouraged everyone to start using renewable electricity. We can tell you how to do it. 64 Albany UU households are now using renewable energy in their homes. We supported a demonstration yesterday to address climate change. We urge all of you to come to another march next Saturday at noon, starting in West Capitol Park. It's a good anecdote to the discouraging election results that were last Tuesday. You can watch the daily reminders for detailed information on the march. In closing, I'd like to share a quote from Winston Churchill that summarizes my experience at Albany UU. Every day you make progress. Every step may be fruitful or not, yet there will stretch out before you an ever lengthening, ever ascending, ever improving path. You know you will never get to the end of the journey, but this, far from discouraging, only adds to the joy and glory of the climb.
Let us turn inward again for this prayer of affirmation. Let us be grateful this morning for the amazing privilege of living in a free and democratic nation, a nation of great resources, opportunity, and ability. We are a land of many colors, cultures, beliefs, backgrounds, and ideologies. We embrace different politics and a peaceful way to settle our differences. We vote. On Tuesday, we exercised our freedom to elect our leaders. Because of our political diversity, some of us woke up happy Wednesday, while others were disappointed. I sense a lot of people here were disappointed. Whether we chose them or not, may we come together in support for all of our newly elected leaders. May they be guided in their ability to serve with wisdom, courage, and integrity as they represent us and govern. May their eyes and hearts be opened to see our greatest needs and set the priorities for our government accordingly. May they not be distracted by the trivial, distracted from the significant and profound needs of their constituents. May they be surrounded by wise and ethical people who will provide good counsel and encouragement. May they find hope, wisdom, and strength as they govern. And may we not forget that it doesn't matter who elected them, they were elected to serve all of us in all of our needs. And it is okay to remind them of that. May we not forget our civic duty to communicate with our elected officials and remind them of their oath to serve all the people for the good of the whole community. Blessed be. And let us have another song, I think. It'd be great to have another song. I Know I Can. This is a great one. The vocalists, Elena Hemingway and Mike Menon. Well, whatever, you can read it.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in the words shown on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And our closing words come from Mark Mosier de Wolf. With what benediction shall I leave you? This: in your life, may you know the holy meaning, the mystery that breaks into it every moment. May you live at peace with your world and at peace with yourself. And may the love of truth guide you in your everyday. Amen. And today we want to thank the Albany UU Virtual Choir, led by Randy Rosette. The ushers today are Don Odell, Kathy Harris, Annika Pfluger, Amy Jameson, Jean Poppy, Sharon Babila. Pastoral Care Associates are Sharon Babila and Annie Lipinski. I'm your service associate. Our welcomers were Amy Lent and Peter Brown. Our greeters were Kathy Hodges and John Sherman. Office support from Tammy Hathaway and Patience Pichette. Technical support from Chris Jensen and Fred Eames, I think. And Chris, of course, was also involved with the choir. Thank you. And flowers today provided by Shannon Simpson.